All right, local government, come to order. Please open the roll. Take attendance.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum?
All right, great. First order of business, we'll talk about charter changes. Senator Spruill, do you have a report?
Mr. Chairman, can we take them in a block, or you want to do one at a time?
There's only one, I believe, that went through your subcommittee that needs that cannot be in a block, and that needs an amendment, and that's House Bill 904, Delegate Kilgore. So we can, if we can just take that out and do that after that, I think it's fine to put them in a block if they all passed unanimously.
Let's see here. Let's know
Or
one
the
minute.
recommendation is to pass unanimously.
1, 2. You're exactly right, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that to call the numbers. House Bill 1, 2, 164, 190. 315, 321, 454. Which one we going to take out, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Which one you want to leave out?
904.
556, 1028, 1256, and 1258.
And 219, I'm told.
Yes, 219, yes.
Okay.
I think that's all of them, I believe.
And they, unanimous, all of them had unanimous recommendations
Yes,
from the
sir.
subcommittee?
Yes, sir.
All right, and there's a motion that we put them in a block. Moved and seconded that we put the numbers just read out into a block. And is there a motion that they pass?
So move.
Moved and seconded that we pass the bills in the block. Go ahead, MJ.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Okay. All right, and next we'll take up Senator Kilgore's House Bill 904, which also went through Senator Spruill's subcommittee. I understand there's a requirement for an amendment. Is that correct, Senator Spruill?
Yes, sir. You have that amendment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, the amendment amends the engrossed bill to, on line 12, strike the word July, insert the word November. So it essentially extends the delayed effective date by 4 months.
All right. Is there a motion on the amendment? Moved and seconded that we amend House Bill 904. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the bill is before us as amended. Is there a motion on the amended bill?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Senator McPike.
I mean, I guess I can speak to the amendment if that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
I guess to the motion, Mr. Chairman, in committee or subcommittee, were there discussions around the process? If this is a reversion from a town back to county, just like we dealt with Martinsville, with the city back to, oh, there's Mr. Stanley. Good morning, Senator. From city to town, can someone on the subcommittee speak to that?
Mr. Chairman. Senator Reeves.
Senator Reeves.
Senator McPike, we had that discussion. The challenge for their specific jurisdictions, they can never even get to a quorum to get to the actual process. And after hearing testimony from both sides, what we thought was, and Delegate Kilgore absolutely said that if he wants the town to stay a town, if they can actually get to that point. So the amendment allows them a little more time to try to get it right, based on what the mayor had talked about in all the discussions. So we kind of had to split the child, so to speak. We wanted a little more time, but also they have never been able to get to a quorum, and they're working in that direction.
Mr. Chairman, on those same line, a question was asked by me and others, those who spoke in the opposition. The question was asked, okay, fine, if what you want to do is fine, can you guarantee that we can get a quorum? That was the question. If you were saying you need more time, we said even with the time, can you guarantee we can get a quorum? They could not guarantee they can get a quorum. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I move.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Senator Bell.
Speak of the motion.
We did look, I agree with what Senator from Spotsylvania said. I mean, frankly, this is a really difficult situation because they couldn't get a quorum. One of the things that I just wanted to bring to the committee, they've had an audit outstanding for 3 years, and the audit findings, frankly, are some of the worst I've ever seen. They had a $21,000 worth of checks found in a drawer. I think 31 pretty serious drug charges thrown out. It's a mess. And without even getting a quorum to move forward, while this may be somewhat of a desperate measure, I don't think that there's another choice. And I will just reiterate that Delegate Kilgore said he would definitely pull this if they could get this ball moving. But frankly, this bill was brought out of frustration because they couldn't move this at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Hoshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I believe I was the one subcommittee member who voted in opposition to the bill, and I'll just share why I voted no. My office has received many emails from Pound residents who are in opposition to this change because it is precedent setting, that it is not following the process that we have in the Virginia Code. We also heard from VML who indicated that they are working with the council members and trying to address many of these issues and concerns. The folks in the town that have reached out to my office understand the issues. They are working to address those issues, and they asked me in their email not to vote in support, and therefore I voted in opposition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Gowdy from VML. I just want to clarify one thing on the quorum issue. They're waiting on the court to appoint 3 council members, so that's why they haven't had a quorum, is because they've been waiting for the court to appoint those members. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. Delegate Kilgore has given them 5 metrics that they're supposed to work towards before that November 2023 date.
Okay.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I move the report.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we report House Bill 904 as amended.
Ayes 13, noes 1.
All right, bill reports. We'll go to the sign-up sheet now. First up on the sign-up sheet is Delegate Head, 1268.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is House Bill 1268, and there is an amendment in the nature of a substitute. This substitute is actually what passed the committee and what the House thought they were voting on, but there was a clerical error in what was reported. So what actually got reported over was the bill as introduced, which was never the intent because we had worked a lot on getting the substitute right. So I appreciate you all adopting the substitute this morning.
Scary, isn't it? Huh?
A little bit.
All right, somebody want to move the substitute?
It's why we are very happy that we have a bicameral process.
Let's get the substitute in front of us. Moved and seconded, we adopted the substitute for 1268. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Head, your substitute's in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, 1268 clarifies who can be covered under group self-insurance pools that are administered under the provision of Title 15.2. These pools were authorized initially by the General Assembly back in 1986, and they've become essential to the ability of political subdivisions to ensure their legal obligation and to save public funds. Since '86, they have created numerous corporations, the political subdivisions, that are insured under these pools. But this legislation makes it clear that the corporations that may currently be insured under the authority of the political subdivision can also acquire insurance independently of the political subdivision. And this would cover things like PTAs, PTOs, booster clubs, youth rec sports leagues that are run by the political subdivision, county or city, youth sports leagues, volunteer fire and EMS departments, and the like. Also in the substitute, you'll see that 501c3 corporations created by localities that receive HUD grants used to fund local public housing projects would also be able to be covered under these pools. There's nothing that is required under this. It is simply permissive and would give all of these folks just options for purchasing insurance to give more competition in the marketplace. And
Mr.
I've
Chairman.
got some folks here if anybody has any questions.
Senator Stanley.
Question of the patron. If you come over here to the Senate, are you going to have boring bills like this, or are you going to have something more spicy?
It will be. I will look.
Can
to
you
your
spice it up a little
leadership.
bit if
Just-
you're so
I will
elected?
try. I will try. But it's early morning. I realize.
Man, I mean, I thought charters was going to be a little tough.
All you got to do is give him a good dog bill. He gets all excited.
I'll keep that in mind. I will keep that in mind.
All right. Any questions for Delegate Head from the committee? Who's down there? Senator Favola.
Senator McPike had his hand up
Okay,
first.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question to the patron. In situations where you have, I guess, I want to partially establish legislative intent through this question, so I'm going to lead you a little bit. So happy Monday morning. But in terms of where we have these organizations, it is the intent that each of the entities involved have to agree
Yes.
to participate in the self-insurance program. Is that correct? So
Exactly. It's completely permissive. What all this really does is gives them options when they are purchasing liability insurance to have more options before them if they choose. If they like what they've got, if they like who they're working with, there's nothing that even requires them to consider anything. It's just if they would like to, this gives them the opportunity to do so.
Okay. I think the delegate, it's important to distinguish because we have separate corporations, separate entities that do participate, but they could choose to not do it for one reason or the other.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, as I read the bill, a locality that provides any public funding to an entity could offer this opportunity, so you're really expanding insurance opportunities, I would expect.
Yes, Senator Favola. That's it. The locality currently could offer this now, but what this does is takes those entities and says, if the locality chooses to work with a different company, but it would be in the best interest of the PTA, for example, if they would be able to save some money by having a different option, this would give them the option to do things on their own, separate from what the locality did if they so chose. That would be.
Yeah. Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Senator Favola.
Does the locality have to be self-insured? Not necessarily, right?
That, I may need to phone a friend on that. I'm told all of them are self-insured. so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else on the committee? Question for Delegate Head. All right. Anybody in the audience to speak in favor of 1268?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good morning. My name is Chris Carey. I'm the administrator of VACORP. It's the local government risk pool. We're in favor of the bill.
Joe.
Morning, Joe Lurch with VACO. And to counter Senator Stanley, this is not the most boring piece of legislation we've seen this session, and we do support for the reason.
All right. Let's see. Anybody else in favor? Anybody else in favor of 1268? Anybody virtually? There is somebody I see. Can we cue up Mr. Harmer?
Yes, sir. I'm bringing him in now. Mr. Harmer, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yes, my name is David Harmer. I'm administrator of Virginia Transit Liability Pool, and we are in favor of this bill.
Love his last name, Harmer.
All right. Anybody in the audience or virtually to speak against House Bill 1268?
If you're in the audience and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There does not appear to be any at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. All right. There's a motion, and is there a second? Moved and seconded that we report. I'm sorry, Senator McPike.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one quick question. Is there any denial letter required from the self-insured pool at all in this process? Just asking for a friend. I withdraw the question. Thank you.
All right. It's been moved. Did we get a second on the reporting motion?
Second.
We do now. Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded that we recommend reporting House Bill 1268 as a substitute. Open the roll. Thank you, Senator Stanley.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right. There you go, Delegate Hill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll try to spice it up next time.
Spicy. All right, I've got Delegate Corner on the sign-up sheet. Is she here? I do not see her. All right, let's move on down. Delegate Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 1325, I believe, does have a substitute that came over from the House.
Do we have a substitute?
Already approved?
Already approved.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, House Bill 1325 actually does some changes to the existing code. So I want to clarify that there is current code in that addresses CPACE, and this does a little bit of cleanup, some additions, and some clarifications. From a cleanups perspective, one of the things that you all recognize is that over the current years, what we've been doing is as we've gone in and touched the code, we've actually moved some of the definitions to the beginning part, as opposed to sprinkling it throughout the code. So that's one of the things that's done here. As far as additions are involved is right now in the current CPACE, what this does is this adds as eligible improvements, it adds safe drinking water, environmental remediation, and EV infrastructure as eligible improvements for CPACE. The other thing that it does is it adds into eligible properties. It adds in common areas that are common areas of cooperatives or homeowners associations that would be eligible if they have a separate tax identification number. It does not change any of the other parts that's in there. It also now allows for direct servicing, meaning the locality may delegate the billing and the collection to a third party. And this is one of the things that is currently allowed underneath an Attorney General opinion, but we felt that it would be better, since we're a Dillon Rule state, to actually include this in the code. So again, it's kind of a cleanup type of thing. And then the last thing that it does is it actually allows the locality to be able to become part of the statewide program for the statewide for the state to serve as a sponsor. So that's what the legislation does, Mr. Chair.
All right, any questions from the committee for Delegate Reed? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor of 1325?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Joe?
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with VACO, speaking in support of the bill. Just a couple of things to note. This is a voluntary program for localities and then also for people that want to participate. We think this will spur some investment, some job creation in a lot of our counties that are interested in using the CPACE program, and this enhances it to make it more likely, and we're definitely in favor of having localities go on to the statewide program. So thank you.
All right, next.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sarah Thomas with Vector here on behalf of the Virginia Association for Commercial Real Estate. H.R. Acre, the Hampton Roads chapter of Acre, supports this bill. The CPACE program is really important to our developers, particularly our smaller developers, in accessing financing and capital for clean energy projects. So we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chair, Joanna Faust on behalf of Fairfax County, and just to reiterate, we would also support for all those reasons. Thank you so much.
Anybody out there to speak against House Bill 1325?
Mr. Chair, we do have some in
I'm sorry.
Zoom.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Oh, there's Bill.
William Nussbaum, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Local Government Committee, my name is Bill Nussbaum. I am a member of the Board of Directors and Secretary of the Virginia PACE Authority, which is a nonprofit that is the state's selected program administrator for the statewide CPACE program, as well as many localities that have adopted their own ordinances. We strongly support this bill. We've participated in its drafting. We think that it is going to make the program run more smoothly and address issues that some localities successfully address issues that localities have raised with us during the off season. It's an economic development success bill. It is a job creating bill in the program, and we ask that local government follow the House's suit and send this on to the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Next.
Abigail Johnson, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you. I think my friend and fellow board member, Bill Nussbaum, really covered it very, very well. But I'd like to thank you all for considering this bill, HB 1325. Basically, I'm the administrator for the CPACE program statewide as the executive director of the Virginia PACE Authority. So we see these additions as being something that will help really alleviate the concerns that developers are having with increased costs, and with rising interest rate environments, they'll be able to really utilize this type of financing even more than they were before. And also really clarifies that local governments can be part of the state program. And this is something that we think is really going to accelerate the use of CPACE in the Commonwealth. So again, thanks so much for the consideration, and look forward to having it hopefully get voted onto the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone to speak against 1325?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
All right. Is there a motion on 1320? Been moved and seconded that House Bill 1325 be reported. Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right, Delegate Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Delegate Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have HB 1194. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, many localities have established industrial development authorities, sometimes referred to as economic development authorities. These help spur economic development across a variety of sectors, including manufacturing, industrial, commercial, agricultural, and affordable single-family and multi-family housing. Under existing code, the authority for EDA and IDAs related to single-family and multifamily housing is limited to localities that do not have a housing authority. This language can be found on lines 100 to 107 of the existing code. So, in localities with a housing authority, the local IDA or EDA does not have the ability to help spur residential economic development. These are often the localities where demand for new affordable housing supply is the strongest. HB 1194 simply adds language to that statute to allow IDAs and EDAs in localities with housing authorities to issue grants to residential economic development projects. It does not require them to issue grants for residential development. It simply gives them the authority to do so. Andrew Clark from the Home Builders Association of Virginia is here if you have any questions.
All right, are there any questions from the committee for Delegate Carr? All right, anybody in the audience to speak in favor of House Bill 1194?
If you are in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
You have a speaker?
You want to say something?
Don't be shy. In favor.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And nobody online or virtually?
There does appear to be one. I'll bring her in.
All right.
Kelly Harris Braxton, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Okay. Good morning. I don't know if you can hear me. Good morning. Yes, Kelly Harris Braxton with Virginia First Cities, a coalition of 17 cities in the Commonwealth, 16 cities. We do support Delegate Carr's bill. Thank you so much.
All right. Anybody speak against 1194?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There does not appear to be any at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. Is there a motion on 1194?
I'll move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and seconded that we report 1194.
Second.
Open her up, MJ.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Delegate
Mr.
Carr.
Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate Wiley.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
HB 1362 is in front of you for consideration. As it states, it clarifies that short-term rentals may be operated in any locality in the absence of an ordinance pursuant to the locality's general land use and zoning authority restricting short-term rentals. Basically, HB 1362 puts the responsibility of localities to put together their own rules and restrictions for short-term rentals on their part. Richmond should not be setting up a one-size-fits-all law for short-term rentals. This bill offers localities the ability to customize their own. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions for the delegate?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves.
All right, Senator Reeves.
Delegate, I've just gotten all kinds of emails on this one. And what I'm trying to find out is, have you gotten together with the Restaurant Association, all the folks involved, and is there a time frame to allow localities the opportunity to get this stuff together, or is this what's the genesis of the bill? Because we've been dealing with this stuff when Airbnb first came in, and now you're stirring the pot again.
Good question. And to be clear, Delegate Davis asked me to carry this bill on his part for clarification. But that being said, so what's happening is we have localities that specifically the supervisors and or the council members, when this is in front of them, they're not willing to set up the local rules and regs and the ordinance in place. The ones that already have it, at least in Winchester, it's working fine. They had no problem with this bill in my district. Basically, it's putting it's making these guys, you have to make this decision, and that's your role. I don't think it should be coming from Richmond. But I don't have a timeline, Mr. Reeves.
Just to follow up. So would you have any heartburn putting a delayed enactment on this to allow some localities some time to get it together? I know in one of my counties specifically, I've heard from 3 Board of Supervisors this morning alone saying we haven't even had a chance to start even thinking about it. So I didn't know what the posture was as it came out of the House, or have there been discussions about a delayed enactment?
Certainly take that into consideration to keep this ball moving forward. Absolutely, Senator.
Senator Favola.
I mean, essentially, we're saying that every locality has to have some ordinance on short-term rentals. That's what your bill does.
If they have short-term rentals, they need to basically step up and start putting together their side of the rules and regs and how it's supposed to be put together. Yes, ma'am.
So if some locality is either unaware that they're having short-term rentals or the locality doesn't want to promote short-term rentals, they would not have an option under your bill.
It's the way I understand it, correct. But I must add that I think it'd be prudent for them to do so in order to get the revenue and make it a level playing field, if you will, with other accommodation groups, hotels, et cetera. I think it's important to kind of, call out what's necessary so that the localities, address this issue, which, if the ones that are paying taxes should know, and they should make this, available and a level playing field for all. I think that'd be my answer.
Follow-up question. Hypothetically, what if a jurisdiction wanted to establish, say, single-room occupancy buildings? So, they could select an operator. This, in fact, would be almost hotel-like, except a single-room occupancy ordinance could allow for up to 3 weeks for somebody to stay at a discounted rate. Would that be considered a short-term rental? Would they be meeting the definition of this bill? I
think that's the way it's spelled out. Certainly it's a question from a legal side, but I think that the localities can make that call accordingly based on the way this bill's written.
Is there a definition of short-term rental? In here it is. It says the provision of a room or space that is suitable or intended for occupancy for a period of fewer than 30 days. So I guess I'll ask General Counsel if my example would fit.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell. Hang on. Senator Bell.
If mine is a piggyback on hers, if I could, because it might be good, because that was my questions to me. It's if they have as I read this, 30 consecutive days, and I've gotten a few questions about this. So if they rent for 30 days and then they have one day where it's not rented, somebody can come back for 30 more days. So pretty much, you can almost be a full-time rental with those odd days. I'm asking the question, is that the case or not?
Jeff?
Mr. Chair, under Senator Bell's hypothetical, it does say 30 consecutive days. So as long as there's a break between those 30 days, I would agree.
Mr. Chairman, I've gotten a few negatives about that. I mean, I don't mean harm to the bill, but I almost feel like we should address that because you could almost have a full-time rental with just a few spaced days.
Let me, can we get an answer to my question, my earlier question? Okay.
Jeff, you got another answer for Senator Favola?
Senator Favola, can you repeat your hypothetical?
If a county contracted out with an operator and set up a building that was intended to be short-term rentals, but the county operated the building through an agent, through a contract, operated the building and had these sort of single-room occupancy models, would that in effect, they wouldn't necessarily be adopting an ordinance. It would be under a single-room occupancy ordinance, perhaps.
And your question is, would that fit this definition of short-term rental?
Correct.
From the facts you give, it does sound like it would.
That's the way I read it.
So it would be a possibility.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, I think the issue here is localities feel their hands being forced, and the timing is an issue. So unless we can considerably expand, do a delayed enactment, but I actually would like more study on this. Maybe we follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Would the patron be willing to have this topic studied in terms of what would constitute a local ordinance and the timing of the local ordinance for short-term rentals?
Certainly, I'd take that into consideration. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I think the direction I'm trying to go here is to make something happen. So whether it's now or whether it's next year, certainly it'd be prudent to get some action so we can move this in the direction I think it needs to go.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion then.
Well, wait, let's see if anybody's here to talk first.
Okay.
There are people.
All right. Is there anybody in the audience to speak in favor of 1362?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Anybody speak in favor?
Where's Glenn Davis?
In the tall grass.
I know, leaving you all out there to hang.
All right. Now, all right, let's pull the buses in. Anybody speak against?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with VACO, and understand what the patron is trying to achieve with the bill. We do have a lot of the same questions, I think, that have been raised here. To kind of give you an idea of how the process works at the local level, I'll give you the example of Fairfax County. Prior to the legislation enacted, I think it was in 2017, they did not allow short-term rentals under this definition in residentially zoned areas, but they wanted to accommodate it. So they went through, I think, about an 18-month process, getting a lot of input from neighbors and citizens, people that wanted to do it, and it got down to some of the definitions, such as the 30 days. And the way they structured it, as my understanding, is they were allowing residential properties by right, as long as they registered, to do up, I think, to up to 160 days out of the year, as long as the owner was there. But beyond that, you would need a special use permit. And so we think there's a lot of questions that are unanswered. How would this affect that? Would that limit that type of construction? We just don't know. So do appreciate the concept of trying to maybe look at the issue, maybe to provide further clarity. So thank you.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Melvin with the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. We have concerns with this bill because of, first, we feel that it undermines a level playing field because if you're allowing these things to operate in jurisdictions with legal cover when there hasn't been an ordinance enacted, that's giving them an unfair advantage against hotels, campgrounds, other lodging establishments. Secondly, the concern that we have with this measure with respect to the tax collection component is the fact that if there's no means in place to collect the taxes from these, it's going to harm tourism promotion, because in many jurisdictions, especially counties, lodging taxes are used specifically to go and finance tourism promotion. And so, that's a critical thing for our industry's recovery. Third, we've been very supportive of Governor Norman's proposal from back in I'm sorry. Senator Norman's proposal.
You're living in an alternate universe there, brother.
I know. He might wish, but
he's listening in, Robert.
Yes, but we've been very supportive of that proposal from 2017, and we think that the local autonomy is an important component again to this. And finally, if this were to be studied, we would certainly be supportive of that, but we don't think that the bill should be moving forward as it's drafted.
Okay.
Michelle Gowdy from VML. I would echo all their comments, but we certainly support the study. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else to speak against 1362?
Good morning. I'm Deborah Bryan from the City of Virginia Beach. Legislative Affairs Director. Contrary to a lot of the phone calls and emails that I received, this was not requested by the City of Virginia Beach. However, as it's written right now, it doesn't affect us because we do have an ordinance in place. However, I just wanted to point out that there are several lawsuits that have been filed against the city regarding our short-term rental ordinance, and one of our concerns is if the court does invalidate our ordinance as it's written now, then this could come to play, and then we could have an issue with, if we don't make the deadline, having another ordinance. So for that reason, we oppose the bill. Thank you.
Okay. And I see we have a number of people online to speak in opposition, so let's open it up for them, please.
Andrew Cohen, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yes, thank you very much. My name's Andrew Cohen from Virginia Beach. This bill is an unnecessary and unwelcome intrusion on the authority and autonomy of Virginia localities. This bill is substantially similar to SB 602 introduced by Senator DeStef, and that this committee struck at his request. The basis for his request, as stated to this committee and in an email and social media post to his constituents, is that at least 5 lawsuits have been filed related to the subject, which will be heard over the next 3 to 6 months. He goes on that the real goal of this legislation was conversation, and that goal has been achieved, close quote. This committee should set aside this bill for those same reasons. Some may claim that this bill is different from the bill which you recently struck, but this bill addresses the same legal issues pending in those lawsuits. Patrons of this bill claim that they're in their House committee testimony and just now that it simply resolves uncertainty for property owners in localities that are not yet passed ordinances to allow short-term rentals. But as the legislative director from Virginia Beach just said, the bill is much more problematic than it might appear. In response to recurring incidents of disruptive tenants and unresponsive property owners and operators, it took Virginia Beach over 3 years of public hearings, drafting, and debate by a special task force, our planning commissioning, and our city council to develop and enact short-term rental ordinances. So for localities like Virginia Beach that have enacted these ordinances, the consequence of enacting this bill, even with with a delay, is that any lawsuit, such as those mentioned by Senator DeStef, succeeds in overturning those ordinances, then short-term rentals would immediately be allowed to proliferate in that locality during the years that it might take to develop and enact alternative ordinances. The General Assembly should be giving localities more flexibility, authority, and autonomy to manage short-term rentals, not less. Please do not report this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Harris Braxton, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Kelly Harris Braxton, Executive Director of Virginia First Cities. Again, as I mentioned, we represent 16 historic cities in the Commonwealth. We strongly oppose this bill for a variety of reasons that have already been stated. I would say that several of our cities And we have a variety of sizes of cities, but several of our cities do not currently have ordinances regarding short-term rentals. And this legislation would force their hands, and we just don't appreciate that change at this time. We would be more supportive of a study, as was mentioned earlier as well. So for those reasons, we oppose this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Beth Erickson, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you so much and good morning. To add to what everybody has already said in opposition of House Bill 1362, I head up Visit Loudoun County's tourism, and let me tell you where we are in our process. I will say that Loudoun County since 2017 with Senator Norman's bill, when that went into effect, we have been working diligently to bring together our community, our planning and zoning, fire marshal, everybody that needs to be a part of putting in good ordinances. And we've been at this process now for 3.5 years. And we are looking to bring it home soon and being able to pass that ordinance very shortly. But it tells you a little bit about the process that communities go through. And I am very proud of what Loudoun County has done in their thoughtful approach. And I also wanted to provide to you just a little bit of structure as well. When I look at, we studied short-term residential rentals in Loudoun County for 22 months. And I will tell you that they amount to about 10% of our hotel and traditional lodging hotels and bed and breakfast. They're important to our destination. And I will tell you that the hosts want to be a part of the destination. They want to do what is right and what the county wishes them to do. One of the discussions when we talk a little bit about transient occupancy tax and also revenue that these operators are contributing currently, even as we are moving forward on the ordinance process, we estimate that on the low end, short-term residential rentals in Loudoun County generate about 4.61 million on the low side and up to 7.59 million on the high side. And from a transient occupancy tax standpoint, they could generate anywhere from $400,000 to $607,000. So it's important that localities have the opportunity to get this right. I support the thought of going to a study, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. But at this point, I will tell you that we strongly oppose HB 1362. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Wiley, you want to wrap up?
Certainly, it sounds like we need to get the stakeholders together, give them some time to finish up this study. Based on what I'm hearing from Loudoun County, it seems like they've been studying for almost 2 years now. I sure hope they come to some direction, but I'll yield back, and I appreciate you letting me speak to this matter.
Senator Favola.
Thank you. I move that we carry over this bill and perhaps write a letter to the Department of Housing and Community Planning to convene stakeholders on this issue to come up with guidelines and a framework for moving forward.
All right, there's a motion.
Second. Speak to the motion.
All right, moved and seconded that we carry over and do a letter. And Senator Stanley.
So, Delegate Wiley, I think, and welcome, of course.
Thank you.
We wrestled with this in this very committee in 2016, 2017. Norman had a bill, I had a bill. We had the stakeholders there. I think what we feared was the wild, wild west, and that these counties were going to be overrun, that we couldn't control how we collected the taxes. There was, quite frankly, a little bit of a heavy hand from perhaps the industry at that point in time. This statute which you seek to amend is something that this body right here, this committee, worked really hard on, if I do recall, and was trying to encourage the localities, but still at the same time respect the localities' ability, because they're the ones generating the taxes, so they should be generating the regulatory process as well. It's not that we shouldn't be thinking about this. It's not that you're not maybe onto something. It's merely the fact that Delegate Glenn Davis gave you this bill and let you hang out to dry, and now is sitting in the back right over here hoping that somehow his presence will change our minds. That's what this is all about.
It was the last shot.
So, but but I hope you understand. I think this is an evolution. What we wanted to do is put some guardrails, as we like to say, to start this industry, and then the evolution of this industry, because we have a lot of stakeholders, whether it be in the hotel and entertainment industries, whether it's in also homeowners that don't like these next door, and then homeowners that need these in order to maybe pay a mortgage or survive, that we're trying to strike a balance. And I think that's how we get there. But I'm going to vote for this bill, or I'm going to vote to pass it by with the study, with the hope that you come back next year. It's not tainted by Delegate Davis's hands, fingerprints, and that you have led the way, led the charge in finding a resolution here. So I appreciate what you're trying to do for him, but don't ever do that again. That's our advice to you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Delegate Wiley, despite having brought the artillery out from the tall grass, we have a motion to carry over and do a letter for a study. That's in what's in front of us. Open up the roll. Somebody has done what's proxy?
Senator Stanley?
Oh, she gave it to me. Look at me. Man, I got 2 votes today.
Ayes 15, no zero.
All right. There you go, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, have a good day.
Wiley, what we do in Franklin County is we go shoot his porch light out from doing that to you. Okay, that's what we do.
We can do that too.
Yes, sir. Good.
All right, let me quickly ask Delegate Bullock, are you finished across the? Okay. Delegate Corner.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I don't have an Airbnb bill. I have an Education Foundation bill. It is House Bill 223. It is identical to Senate Bill 437 that passed out of this committee unanimously and out of the Senate unanimously. And it is to assist our local public education foundations, if their employees are solely assisting their public school systems, to be able to have benefits and insurance if so provided.
Just for giggles, let's just see. Is anybody here to speak in favor of the bill?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Can't you be more like Creed Deeds?
There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
PBI. Anybody here to speak in opposition of?
If you're in,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Okay.
There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
Oh, good. All right. We got a motion. Is it anybody second that? Okay. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Open her up.
Oh, wait, I got another vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
All right, Delegate Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see something. I meant to do this at the front end as a housekeeping measure, and I see Delegate Murphy out there. Delegate Murphy has in front of us HB 445, which is identical to Senator Boysko's Senate Bill 446, which passed out of the Senate unanimously. Do you want to speak?
Second.
There you go.
Oh, just for giggles. Let's hear what the bill's about.
Yeah, just give us the Reader's Digest version before we.
Same bill.
This is the one that repeals right to work, isn't it? Is that?
Absolutely, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, we done heard the same thing. So.
All right. Just real quick, just give us 3 sentences.
The bill provides that stakeholder group be put together to look at and evaluate what's needed to expand broadband.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Here you go.
All right. Motion and duly seconded to report HB 445. Open the roll.
It's a totally excellent bill.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Great.
That was close.
Thank you, Delegate Murphy. Sorry to keep you waiting on that. All right, Delegate Corey.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your allowing me to move this from last week when I wasn't able to be here. And I think this is a bill that Senator Stanley is really going to like. HB 648 deals with comprehensive plans and public notice, and it adds one word, only one word, Senator Stanley, on line 43, adding the word park to public area, facility, etc. And that brings that paragraph in line with the other paragraphs in this particular part of the code. It has to do with land use and notice to different members of the public depending on what the change may be. And for some reason, parks were left out of this one part of the bill. They're in the rest of it.
Okay. All right, any questions from the committee on House Bill 648? Anybody speak in favor of House Bill 648?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
I think you've got a speaker there, Doug.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to knock you
Yeah.
over. No.
Go ahead.
Just very briefly, Mr. Chair, Joanna Faust on behalf of Fairfax County, would like to thank Delegate Corey and support. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Chairman, it
Doug
is a
Corey.
substitute, but it was passed out of the House.
It came out as a substitute.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, anybody else, anybody speak against 648 possibly?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded that we report House Bill 648. Open the roll.
Senator. Senator Favola? Senator Favola for?
All right.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you.
All right, next on the sign-up.
Thank you. I'll do it again next year, Senator Stanley. Thank you.
Next on the sign-up sheet, Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is House Bill 1088. And so it does two things. First, it allows adjacent property owners to enter into a boundary line agreement so long as it does not create additional lot, greater street frontage, or interfere with a recorded easement. And the second part is it allows a slight variance from zoning requirements, not zoning, but area requirements for property that flows from an in-kind division in a partition suit. And so a lot that varies from, say, minimum square footage by no more than 20% would be allowed coming from the partition suit. Understand there may be some amendments proposed. Had numerous discussions with some of the stakeholders. I'm in agreement with a majority of those amendments, but depending on what is actually proposed, I may object to one sentence. And I can explain the impetus of the bill if the committee wants to, but I don't want to tread on this time too much.
Why don't you give them a little heads up on what?
Okay. So, quick story as to why I brought the bill. I had some landowners that wanted to had a dispute on a property line, and we had the one landowner go through the transaction. I vetted the new description with a title company. They said they would insure the transaction. We closed. Then the master parcel went to close. They couldn't get title insurance. So I called the city, asked if we could get something from them indicating that the boundary line agreement was valid, and there's just a flat-out refusal. And I said, well, wait a minute, your ordinance says there's no new lot, there's no new road frontage, it doesn't mess up an easement. You told me you would approve this in a subdivision plan if we submitted one. We're not changing anything significant. And they basically said, you got to go through the subdivision ordinance. And I said, well, we're not creating a new lot, new street frontage. And to require people to get surveys of all the surrounding property and go through a subdivision plan to spend $10,000 to $15,000 in a year to just resolve a property line dispute seems a little bit crazy. Take that to another example. I represent people who have land that abuts the Dismal Swamp. And when the canal was dug, they had, stone markers that marked about a mile down the swamp. Half those markers have fallen into the canal, but all the legal descriptions along that canal start with a marker. And so when you have these natural markers like trees and granite rocks and bends in a stream, or a marker that's disappeared, there are legitimate situations where the owners do not know where the boundaries to the property are, and they should not have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to try to resolve that amicably. If you have two 100-acre parcels that are adjacent to one another, you could spend $10,000 to $15,000 in each survey alone, when you could just have a surveyor shoot that line and agree to it. And as long as you're not creating a new lot or trying to do something nefarious with the zoning ordinance to create a subdivision that otherwise needs approval, I don't see why landowners should not be able to do that.
Right, and we've got, boundary line agreements are commonplace in real estate practice across the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Right?
And the conversation I had with our city attorney was, look, and my city attorney actually agreed with me that some of these situations are just kind of like really simple. But he said that involves discretion. Like, well, no, it's either allowed or it's not allowed. You don't get to call balls and strikes in situations like that. And so thus that provision of the bill. And I don't know whether, Mr. Chairman, you want to handle this piecemeal.
Yeah, let's bifurcate it, because I think, and I understand there may be some amendments, at least to the first part of it, that are agreeable to the patron, correct? Okay. Senator Favola, do you have those? Or?
I do, and my apologies to General Counsel. Thank you. I do. My apologies to General Counsel. I will show you the two sentences. If you go to line 86, after recorded easement, and I want to say that I worked with Delegate Lethwidge, Chip Dix, and representatives of Loudoun County, so these are sort of well-founded. So after easement on line 86, we'd add, and such agreement shall not result in any nonconformity with local ordinances and health department regulations.
Which line is that?
Line 86, after recorded easement. Okay. And then that's one sentence. Okay. So we're saying the agreement has to conform with local ordinances and health department regs.
So if I could just understand it real quick, Mr. Chairman. So, for instance, if you were to put up and you're screening, for instance, your cannabis plants in your backyard, that would be something that this would help to resolve? I withdraw the question.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Just let it hang there for a little while.
there's a second sentence related to this boundary agreement. So notice shall be provided to the zoning administrator of the locality in which the parcels are located for review. So those two sentences, again, on line 86, after easement, and before the sentence that begins for any property. And I believe that Delegate Lethwidge agreed with that, and I move those amendments.
Second.
Is that correct, Delegate Lethwidge? All right, so we have the two amendments in front of us by agreement, and there's a motion and a second that we adopt them. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we've got those amendments.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you're ready. We had more disagreement. We didn't quite come to an harmonious ending regarding the whole conversation when the courts get involved.
Partition suit piece.
The partition suits, that's correct.
Well, I think we bifurcated the discussion, so let's let Delegate Lethwidge go to the partition suit piece.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so with partition suits, and I've been practicing law for a little over 30 years, and I've handled an abundant number of partition suits. And in one scenario, one owner had 242nd interests in a piece of property. And what I found in my practice is that, quite frankly, a lot of these partition suits involve minority-owned property, because back around the turn of the century, a lot of minorities did not have access to estate planning. And so you'll find a lot of heir property belonging to minorities. And so the purpose of this bill is to allow, and this is a real-life example. I've got a client whose family sharecrop property in Chesapeake, and it's an irregular shaped piece of property. It's got a limited amount of street frontage, and this gentleman wants to purchase the property in a partition suit, divided in kind, and allow descendants of the original owners to build houses and live there on the property that was once sharecropped. And so what this bill is intended to do, in Chesapeake, used to exempt all property in kind from any minimum width, minimum lot area, or minimum street frontage. Complete and absolute 100% exemption. But they've changed that. And so I brought this bill to bring back a little bit of balance. And so if you read my bill, what it does is it says that a lot that is technically non-conforming would not vary from those zoning requirements by more than 20%. So for example, if your ordinance required 100 street frontage, you could do it if you had 80 feet, but not 79 feet. If you were in a zoning district that required 10,000 square foot lots, you could build a house if you had 8,000 square feet of lot area, but not 7,999. So, and the reason I think the bill is important is because you have these families that they want to keep their property and they want to turn it into something with value. And when you have these strict requirements of street frontage and lot area, it limits their ability to keep that property in the family and do something with it, for that family. And so, I started out, it was like 100%, but I met with some of the stakeholders and let's try to figure out a way so that if you were visually looking at the lot, it wouldn't differ a great deal from what the surrounding area is. So the naked eye, you wouldn't know the difference between 10,000, 8,000 square feet. You wouldn't really know the difference between 100 feet and 80 feet of street frontage. And so that's the balance I've tried to bring to accommodate the concerns of local government.
All right. Let's talk about the partition piece. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do want to thank Delegate Leftwich for the hours we spent on this ad hoc work group over the weekend. The issue that local government is concerned about, and I do represent portions of a very large and expanding county, Loudoun County, with lots of subdivisions. When an individual goes and petitions a court for what we would say here, a decree, if you will, designating a certain portion of land as valuable, more often than not, that individual is expecting to get a buildable lot. So we don't want any confusion, because what may happen is they'll get a sliver of a property, or they'll get a property that looks large enough to build, but it will not meet the county zoning ordinances. And that petitioner will get this court decree and go down to the county zoning administrator and say, I want to build something. And in effect, the zoning administrator will have to say, I'm sorry, you don't meet the zoning ordinance requirement. So we all agreed that we are not going to bound the court in making sure it meets the zoning ordinance, but we did, at least most of us, Mr. Leftwich is not on this page, most of us on the committee wanted to offer the next two sentences. A copy of the final court decree shall be provided to the zoning administrator of the locality in which the property is located, and the final order or decree shall just state, whether the resulting parcels are buildable lots in accordance with local ordinances and health department regulations. We viewed this as just consumer protection, truth in advertising, just so it's clear on the court decree what that property can be used for.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator, let me just throw something in there. So I think a potential problem with that is you're putting the court in the position of making a zoning determination, which is not actually the question that's in front of it, I think.
That's my objection.
Yes.
That's his
All right,
objection.
Senator Sproul.
Mr. Chairman, I disagree with what she was saying. She was talking about Loudoun County. Now remember, city-wise, you're talking about the second largest city in the state, Chesapeake. Virginia Beach is the first city now, not the other Virginia where she's from. So the key is this. For years, let's go back and say Norfolk County and South Norfolk. What he is talking about, we have had that problem in South Norfolk for years. 7.5 years on the planning commission, almost 8 years on the city council from South Norfolk, where I'm from. Because South Norfolk merged with Norfolk County in 1963 to become a city. And we were complaining because of the setbacks, the line drawings, those who own property couldn't buy it because in South Norfolk, we had no zoning orders. You can build a hospital, you can build a graveyard side by side of each other. We had the same problem that he was talking about. And some of us were trying to get this same thing fixed that he's doing now. They're trying for a long time to get this thing fixed. So on this third point, to my son, I disagree. I'm not going to support that. He's exactly right. And finally, I'm surprised that he's bringing forth he being from Great Bridge. I'm so surprised about that. He being from Great Bridge and not from South Norfolk. So I thank him for it. And we've been trying for a long time for that. So I'm definitely hoping that we don't support this third item that you're talking about. And I'm ready to make a motion to approve this bill.
Hang on a second. We've got to take some public comment here.
I think we'll have to discuss further.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I do not agree. I'm sorry. I don't mind the first sentence.
Sure.
That a copy
Give
of the
them a
final
copy.
order be given to the local administrator. It's the last one that I have issues with. And at the proper time, I'd like to propose another technical amendment on line 90.
Let's go ahead and get this in the final form before people start speaking to it. So what's your technical amendment?
It will be on line 90 after with, instead of and, it should be or.
Okay. All right. And, all right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the bill on line 90 as, yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, could we also adopt the one line that Delegate Leftwich is comfortable
Yeah,
with?
we'll get to that next.
Okay.
All right, and so all in favor of that amendment and to or, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and now the one line that you all have agreed on, providing it to the zoning department.
After the 20%, please, the sentence is, a copy of the final decree shall be provided to the zoning administrator of the locality in which the property is located.
All right, that's the proposed amendment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry, what?
Mr. Chairman, just make sure.
Yeah, he's all right with that.
I'm
He
okay
said
with
he
that.
was.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he said he was.
You okay?
Moved and seconded that we amend the bill by providing on line 91 that a copy of the final decree be provided to the zoning administrator of the locality.
In which the property is located.
All right, all in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that amendment's been adopted.
Okay, so we have amended the language as closely as we can, and stakeholders are now we're unanimous with the amendment so far.
So far.
So let's see if we can get this over the finish line.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick
Senator
question. Are they using, just to try to get my head around this, are they using like whatever the most current survey? They have to do a new survey? Because just wondering the percentages and then the 250 feet to make sure that's somewhat accurate.
Right, so in the partition suit, you would need to present surveys. In other words, the court's going to have to. So one of the reasons I object to that last sentence is because in this process, you're going to have at least one attorney, land use attorney. You're going to have a special commissioner who is someone assigned by the court to hear the case, who is generally a land use expert, and then you have a circuit court judge to review all of this. And then part of that process is you bring in an engineer if you're going to divide it in kind, and the engineer is going to look at all this and say, this is how you divide the property up. And the court is tasked with determining whether the property is amenable to division in kind. So all these boxes are being checked through the litigation process.
And you're going to have to get an appraisal too.
Yes.
And wouldn't your appraisal reference any zoning issues with?
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, by the time you get through paying all the lawyer's fees, you can't afford it.
Well, we did mess with that partition statute a few years ago, which did have some negative impact on that. But anyway, anybody else have any questions?
Could we hear the one that he objects to? Are we on that one now? The last one that Barbara was talking about?
I think we're going to have to listen to the commenters and
Yeah,
to local
let's do
government
that.
on this last
All right,
sentence.
anybody speak in favor of House Bill 1088?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chairman, we have a transplant from Alabama who is here. He's from Chesapeake. The Simpson John Cosgrove. He's not from South Norfolk, Chesapeake, but he's from Alabama, and he lived in God's country. Good morning, sir.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a little unusual to have a member of the more enlightened and senior body to speak on behalf of those from the other end of the Capitol. But I will tell you that this particular bill that Delegate Leftwich is trying to get through here is critically important to an awful lot of families. My district has a lot of undeveloped area that is owned by multiple people because of inheritance, etc. And I will tell you that it has an inordinate impact on families of color. There is one section of Chesapeake called Fentress, which is a historic black community, and they have a bunch of different problems trying to partition and get these lots set up so they can actually use them. You may have 10, 20 family members. You may not know where some of them are. And this, I think, goes a long way in trying to help those people get the best use of their property and just not have it lay there with no credible use. So I hope you'll look favorably upon this bill.
Thanks, Senator Cosgrove. Anybody else to speak in favor of 1088?
There is someone in the Zoom room,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Let's open it. Oh, okay.
Chip
So
Dix, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm a good Samaritan in this particular piece of legislation, so I don't have a client. Delegate Leftwich and Senator Favola asked me to provide resource. It's certainly a good bill in terms of what the outcome will be for families who have difficulty with ownership of property over time. We're talking about the partition piece, and so I would urge you to support the bill.
All right. Anybody else in favor? Anybody speak against 1088?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Nobody speak against 1088?
There is one, Mr. Chair. I'm bringing him in now.
All right.
Charles Yudd, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We appreciate the patrons' hard work on the bill, and we are very supportive of trying to solve property issues related to heirs and a disposition of estate, especially those that have been long held by individual families. What we were concerned about was the ability to ensure that once divided, all of the parcels would meet the criteria to be considered buildable. And we really didn't want any of these heirs to wind up with any type of issue that precluded them from having something real of value that could be either sold or developed. And so therefore, we were looking for some sort of information at the end of the bill, language that would speak to the decree noting whether or not the lots would be buildable. So at least at the end of this, the heirs and those entitled to the property realized exactly what they had, that it would be a buildable lot. There are many different zoning regulations at play in ordinances throughout the Commonwealth, and this language gives relief to lot area and width and frontage, so long as you're not deviating from those requirements by more than 20%. And I think overall that's good, but there may be some requirements such as lot coverage or floor area ratio and local health department regulations regarding the location of well and septic that these owners may encounter. And so we were just looking for additional language about notification that these lots would be considered buildable. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Senator Favola, do you want to go back to your final proposed amendment, or?
Well, Mr. Chairman, again, we just want to make sure that individuals are clear about what is possible with this court decree. Because if they go down, again, if they go down to the local zoning administrator with a court decree and the expectation that they have a buildable lot, it will be unfortunate and cause a great deal of confusion between the recipient and the petitioner and the county. Now, I do respect, Delegate Leftwich is an attorney and I know does a lot of land use work, and he has, explained to the group that attorneys would do their due diligence and evaluate zoning ordinances and present that information to the court. But we think this is just a truth in advertising kind of thing. That's all. I mean, we can, if in fact a buildable lot makes folks nervous, maybe we could say the final order decree shall, indicate what the resulting parcels, I don't know, may be used for. That wouldn't be good legal language.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
Just add, while I know some people would want a buildable lot, sometimes people just want the extra space. So they wouldn't always want a buildable lot necessarily.
Mr. Chairman, let me respond. No, and we're not saying they have to get a buildable lot. That's not the purpose of this statement. The purpose of the statement is just stating whether it is or isn't. So they can get a sliver and they may choose to sell it to a developer and expand a nearby lot. So there's nothing in this sentence that requires the petitioner to get a buildable lot. That's not what this sentence does. This sentence is merely a truth in advertising. The final order will just state whether it's a buildable lot or not.
But here's.
We're interested
So if
in more information.
you've got a partition suit, then and it's susceptible to in-kind division. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Susceptible to in-kind division. The in-kind division is going to be amongst the parties to the suit. So they're going to be fully aware of what they've got. Is that a fair?
I think that's very accurate.
Yeah.
And it may not require it to be buildable, but essentially what you're doing is you're requiring the litigants to go through the subdivision process in the city before the suit's ever concluded and have the city give a hypothetical opinion. You're including a declaratory judgment action in a partition suit. You're having the court, they have to go through the process of declaring whether it's buildable or not, which is completely untenable.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
and that was a conversation we had because there would have to be informal conversations with county officials regarding whether the ordinances apply. But at the end of the day, I guess we would hope county officials would be pretty efficient in giving that kind of preliminary answer or preliminary response. Could we have a moment to work on this, maybe?
Mr. Chairman, I hope not.
We go. Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
okay.
we've really only got one more bill.
We heard this long enough, Mr. Chairman, and
all right.
she had some of the county. We live in the city. I hope not.
All right.
He wants to roll this one.
Do you want? All right. So the bill with the amendments heretofore is in front of us.
Move to report.
Move it second.
Moved and properly seconded that we report 1088 as amended. Open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank the committee.
Thanks for the excitement, Delegate Leftwich. Delegate Bulova, sorry.
Wrong answer when you asked whether general laws was still good or not.
You should have fudged on that one, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 443 adds park authorities to entities that are authorized to establish fee-based charging systems. And just a really quick background, we actually started down this road back in 2011 in order to help develop Virginia's charging station infrastructure. And so over the years, we started with private entities, and then we added schools, local governments, public universities, state parks, DGS. And it finally became such a Christmas tree that we chopped down that Christmas tree in 2020, and we just granted this authority to everybody, or so we thought. There was actually one unique group that we missed, and those are park authorities. And that's all this bill does, is it simply corrects that oversight. I will say that I'm a little heartbroken that Senator Stanley is not here, because I really think he would get a charge out of this bill, because it's not a very static issue.
Ooh. twofer. All right, that's House Bill 443. Are there any questions from the committee on 443? Well, wait a minute, let's just, anybody speak on 443?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
Anybody? Yep, go ahead.
Just very briefly,
Real quick.
Mr. Chair, Joanna Faust on behalf of Fairfax County. We have 32,000 acres, 325 miles, 9 rec centers, dog parks, and this is just one more for our Fairfax County Park Authority, one more option that the localities already have. Thank you. Thank you to Delegate.
Anybody speak possibly against?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
All right.
There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
There we go. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we report House Bill 443. Open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you, Delegate
Mr.
Bull.
Chairman, thank you very much.
So, as a matter of housekeeping, I want to go back really quickly to one of the charter bills, and that was 904, and just say, and I should have said this at the outset of the committee, and it goes every time we have a subcommittee meeting. We choose to put some of these things in subcommittee because it's just, with the volume and the short time that we're here, it's the best way to handle these things. All the charters run through Senator Spruill's subcommittee, and I understand from the subcommittee, Senator Spruill, that they took extensive testimony from different sides on House Bill 904. And so while we didn't have any public hearing in full committee, obviously it had been dealt with sufficiently and vetted sufficiently in subcommittee. And Delegate Hashmi was the dissenting vote. It also passed the House, which we're not supposed to refer to, 100 to nothing, and also county, cities, and towns, 22 to nothing. So I just want to put that out there unless anybody thought we were giving that issue short shrift. It had been vetted pretty extensively by the subcommittee. All right, one more bill, and that is House Bill 1221, Senator Moorfield, Delegate Moorfield, and I believe Senator Hackworth tells me that was an identical to a bill that he had on the Senate side that passed out unanimously. Can you speak just briefly to that, Senator Hackworth?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is basically, it allows facilities to do a public-private partnership to do infrastructures with the IDAs, and it's really critical for our rural areas to be able to do that.
And it is identical to your Senate bill, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 1271. Can you open the roll?
Ayes 15, no zero.
All right. That's it. I believe that completes the docket. Anything else? All right. All right. Anything from the committee? All right. We are adjourned.